right now. Hey, everybody. This is the Black Motivation Broadcast, and we are live with Williams Brack, banker extraordinaire.
Whoa.
Banker extraordinaire, yeah. And so, in normal fashion, we're going to hop straight into this interview.
Okay.
Are
Yeah,
you
let's do
ready?
it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. So, how did you get into banking, and what do you feel has been the key to your success?
So I got into banking in a very non-traditional fashion. I've been in sales my entire career, and I started my career off financial planning. And the job that I had before banking was manufacturing and distribution sales. So I was selling nuts, bolts, screws, cutting materials to any company that made or moved something.
Okay.
And it was a fine career. I worked from home, made my own schedule. But when I worked for that company, I did a lot of community service, and I was working with the Memphis Urban League Young Professionals, and me and a couple other people decided to go into a group side project.
Okay.
Now, for a year, everybody I met, I said, "Hey, I'm in manufacturing sales, but I'd like to get into banking." So for a year, I literally told everybody I met that. And at a meeting that was kind of an offshoot of the Urban League, a local business owner, he was like, "Hey, well, First Horizon, which is the headquartered bank here, is having a meeting, and all the executives going to be there. You should come since you say you want to get into banking."
Awesome.
I said, "Yeah, just tell me the details." He says, "It's tomorrow at this place." I show up. Every executive of the bank is there.
Wow.
And they're trying to figure out how to better lend to African American businesses here in the city. Now, everybody in the room owned the business except for me.
No.
Quite frankly, I had no business in the room. However, because of my financial planning days and working with business owners, I was able to contribute. I got the cards of the every top executive of the bank, and I followed up with each and every one of them. Well, one of the people that responded was the chief of HR, and his name was John Daniel. And to his credit, one of the things that he did was take people who he deems as high achieving and try to figure out where their transferable skills fit in at the bank.
Awesome.
So roughly a year, he and I met, and I had one interview, and he brought the chief diversity officer in. Her name's Lynn Walker, and she set up a day of interviews for me. And I was able to see what kind of aligned with my interest and see where my transferable skills fit in. And they brought me in and introduced me to the banking industry.
That is so amazing. So making those connections
Absolutely.
are so important. Connections, networking. I'm all about that. And that's how the world goes around. And that's how you accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish, as you did very clearly in this example. You spoke it into existence, and you networked it into existence.
Yeah, I mean, anything, any goals, anything you want to do, speak it into existence, visualize it, and then go get it.
Yes, for sure. And so what do you consider to be the top 3 highlights from your career?
I think being a part of deal teams where we're doing $100 million loans, right? I grew up in Greenwood, Mississippi, and $100 million I couldn't even fathom.
Right.
And to be a part of teams, to be able to put together deals and structures like this is definitely a tremendous highlight.
Yes.
And then I'm at a different bank now, and we're going through this Corona thing, and being able to help these small businesses keep their employees and keep their businesses afloat has definitely been a highlight.
Yes.
Absolutely.
For sure. And so what advice, you've talked a little bit about how you got into banking. What advice would you have to give to others who would like to get into finance and into banking?
I think the easy way is when you're in college and when you're choosing a career to major in finance or banking and insurance, investment banking, or something like that. But the second rule, which maybe a lot of people don't fathom, is to understand what your transferable skills are and meet the right people. That's the blueprint that I use, because the things that you've learned, whether it's in operations, mine's just so happen to be sales, can very easily transfer across multiple industries. And once you get there, you can kind of drill down on the specifics. But by and large, things are very, very similar.
Okay. We use those transferable skills.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And coming back again to that networking.
Yeah, and networking. I mean, we're in a people business, and everywhere around us is people, and your ability to connect will greatly influence your ability to succeed in life.
Right, relationship building. It's all about relationship building.
Absolutely, and people use that all the time, but I don't take it lightly.
I don't either, for sure. And so, if you could go back to the beginning of your career and give yourself advice, now knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Connect with more people, build relationships with more people. So I'm a person who likes to go deep with a few people versus wide with a lot of people. And I tell myself, figure out how to go deep with a lot more people and build more meaningful relationships. Because as I look out at some of the business owners that I work with, they hire people that they've come into contact with in their past lives. Right, that they were able to develop a relationship with, that they trust, and then they were able to build something great with that. And a lot of the friendships I have now, I invested in, and I value those. I just wish, you build friendships with more people and have a richer experience in life.
Yes, it's very, very, very true. And so switching it up, talking about a different topic that's kind of like in the news, in social media right now, how do you feel about a cashless society? And do you feel like we're moving in that direction?
How do I feel about a cashless society? I don't think we're anywhere close to a cashless society. Okay. If you're watching the news right now, there's a coin shortage.
Yes.
Right. And so that for me gives a sense of how far we are away from a cashless society, and that we still depend on pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. Right. And then to add on top of that, the country, be it economically, is interdependent on other industries. So let's call it technology.
Okay.
In order to go cashless, you need reliable internet everywhere.
Right.
Well, there's places in the United States that don't get reliable internet access. You can't go cashless there. Right. There are some industries that still depend heavily on cash. You can't go cashless there. Yeah. And so I think we're so far away from a cashless industry as a whole. But some cities, let's call it New York, California, some of your major metropolitan areas, with the built-in infrastructure, are definitely closer, but the more to the middle of the country and more to the south of the country, we're very, very far away from a cashless society. It's a great idea, great for the government and compliance and law enforcement, but people still don't have trust in the financial system, and they keep money under the mattress. They keep coin jars everywhere, and so, to me, in my opinion, we're not very close to cashless at all. Shout out
here first.
shout out to Bitcoin, by the way.
Shout out to Bitcoin. Yes. And so, transitioning from cashless society, what are 3 money moves that every smart business needs to make in 2020?
Oh, definitely hoard up on cash. So what's the 3 most important things are cash, access to cash, and having proper credit, which gives you access to cash.
Right.
We can say it over and we can say it over and we can say it over again, but cash is king.
Yep.
And when you don't have access to it, you're hurt. When you hit a period like COVID and you took the cash lesson lightly, you're in trouble. You're out of business. As I look at the landscape of companies that are able to survive, one of the primary characteristics that they all share is they have great cash on their balance sheet. And or they have access to capitals. They can either go to the financial markets and get money, they can go to family and friends and get money, or they kept cash that their business was generating on their balance sheet. And so once this COVID thing kind of goes away in the next couple of years, these companies are in prime position to grow because their competition which was careless with their cash, is out of business now. And so that's more opportunities for companies that practice fiscal restraint by keeping cash and making smart investments.
Yes. Awesome advice. And so, on the flip side, what are 3 mistakes you see businesses make that stop them from reaching the level where you deal with businesses, like the $100 million deals? Like, what business mistakes do you see business make that prevent them from getting to that level?
Common mistake is not investing in their financial systems. You have business owners who are still doing their taxes themselves. That's a no-no. You have business owners who refuse to hire an accountant. That's a no-no. And you have business owners who refuse to engage CPAs and other financial professionals that will take them to the next level. Now, speaking as a banker, and when we put together these $100 million deals, who does your financials, who audits your financials, and the CPA firms that you use comes into play. It's critically important.
Oh, we lost him for a second. I'm sure he will come back. Tony from H-Town, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And so we're going to wait a little bit for him to come back on, and we're just going to talk for a little bit. Tony, tell us, you're from H-Town. How do you know Williams Brack? In the comments, drop them. Let me hear you. And for everyone who is tuning in, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Black Truth Media, which is the moniker for our business that we run, and these interviews that we do through the Black Motivation broadcast. We interview different celebrities, industry leaders, and we show you how they got to where they are. We talk about the topics that are important to you and talk about the topics that are important to them. And so we are very excited to have Williams Brack on. He's a banker. He is also an author of many articles online. You can check him out talking about different topics that are related to banking, related to big business and small business, and African Americans in business. So let's check in with him and see, what's going on. Just give me a moment, and we're gonna get him back on. So everyone who's watching, I want to thank you again for tuning in to the Black Truth Media's Black Motivation broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's check in, see. Oh, you met him through a lender summit in Chicago. Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, welcome to the Black Motivation broadcast, Tony. He said, not sure exactly what happened, but we're going to get him back on in just a second. And thank you for joining us live. Here we go. We got him back. Back. We're back.
Awesome. Sorry about that. No idea what happened, but we are back.
You're totally fine. This happens. It does happen. So we were talking about mistakes that businesses make.
So the one of the primary mistakes is not investing into professional services, and number one being accounting and CPA services. The more your company grows, the more important it is for businesses to have their financial infrastructure in place, to have strong tax and financial advice. It's when you're small, it's okay for an accountant or bookkeeper to do your taxes, but as you grow, you need to go from transactional tax advice to getting financial advice as far as forward-looking. Taxation is backwards-looking. Now you need a CPA or a CFO or someone outside to say, hey, these are the things that we're looking forward to in the future. Here's how we can get there. And these are the variables for that.
Okay.
Secondarily, they don't invest in legal services. We're in a litigious society, and we are in a contractual society. And what you don't want is to book a really great deal and then the legal contract be off.
Yeah.
and that could sink a company. And
Mhm.
so investing in the right lawyer, both from a litigation standpoint and from a standpoint of making sure your contracts are in order.
Yeah.
The other thing, this would be the second thing, is that a lot of people are living out of their business. If you
Mhm.
want to be a business owner, you have to figure out a way to start to reinvest back into your company.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to pay yourself, but then the profits that you make, instead of spending it all and going on vacation, really build something, or invest in that cash, buy new equipment, buy more inventory, expand your business, and hire. And it's too many small businesses who are still living out of their companies, and maybe they should have started their business a year or two later when they had the capital to actually properly run the business.
Right.
The other one is, the last thing is to protect your credit.
Mhm.
The larger you grow, the smaller you are, your personal credit is critically important.
Mhm.
At least a 720 will insulate you from a lot of issues,
Mhm.
and typically ensure that you have some sort of access to capital.
Right.
Uh, because banks look at your past credit history. Like,
Mhm.
is this a person of good character?
Mhm.
Have they paid their bills in the past? And the way to answer that in the affirmative is, yeah, I have a 720, or I have an 800,
Right.
or I have a high score. So you can tell that I've paid my bills in the past. And
Right.
that's a good indicator that I will also pay my
Mhm.
bills in the future.
Mhm.
And so business owners need to definitely invest in personal services. That needs to be mandatory and considered a startup business expense. The second thing I mentioned is to reinvest back into your business and keep
Yeah.
cash on your balance sheet. And the third thing is to protect your credit and make sure you're paying your bills when they're due.
Mm.
Those are three really big ones if you intend on growing a company.
Right.
If you just plan on, being a solo entrepreneur and living out of your company, that's fine too. But what I mentioned, those are the things you need to do to kind of grow a really
Right.
viable business
And take it to the next level.
and take
Okay.
it to the next level. Absolutely.
All right. So, fun question. Fun question. What do you think it would take to build another Black Wall Street? We're talking about Black Lives Matters in the news. We're talking about, building our own businesses and investing in our communities. What do you think it would take to build another Black Wall Street? And how much economic power do you think Blacks would potentially have? And what do you think would be the effects of building
Oh, I think what it would take is willpower,
that?
and both political and economic will
Hmm.
concentrated in a singular location.
Hmm.
And so an example of that was in Tulsa.
Hmm.
They had business owners, but they weren't spread all throughout the city. They were concentrated in one area. Another example is Auburn Avenue there in Atlanta. They
Hmm.
had, instead of spreading the businesses out, you can concentrate locally. Now, a distant mentor of mine told me, listen, either you can use politics to get the economics or get the money, or use the money to get the politics. And
Hmm.
so what you can do is if you're running great businesses, proper businesses, and reinvesting in these to grow, you concentrate them in one area, use that money to influence the politics, and continue to grow both politically and economics. Now, the power per se that we can amass will always be muted, because we're only about 13%
Hmm.
of the economy. But if we invest strategically in industries such as technology, oil and gas, which is critically important, defense and agriculture, and start to corner certain industries, then your power can be outsized your actual population percentages if you can corner a few industries. And so what that would mean is you'd have to invest early now in education,
Right.
and in the skill in the trade and skill areas such as engineering, such as science, such as computer technology. It's a 50 to 100-year play that you have to invest in if you want another Black Wall Street to be viable long term. But
Yeah.
if you're trying to get something over the next 5 years, it's going to be hard. But if you keep a long-term outlook, educate the talent that you need to take on the industries to be able to be viable players, then Black Wall Street could thrive and it could be fantastic, and it can be in multiple cities.
Yeah. See, he's dropping gems, dropping knowledge, y'all. Okay, okay. Education is key.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah,
Okay.
education is key. Being financially responsible and
Mhm.
making sure that you use the money that you're creating financially and economically in business to influence the politics further in the favor of said businesses.
Yes.
The playbook is out there.
Mm-hmm. We just need to take advantage.
Yeah, we just need
And we
to
need more
get active.
coaches like you.
Yeah. So yeah, the blueprint is out there. We've seen it done from a lot of different ethnic groups,
Mhm.
but there are other things more important to African Americans here in this country. We're such a giving and loving people that we go to things like sociology, we go to things like psychology, instead of learning how to start that business, instead of learning how to grow that business and using that wealth to do things that we would do in sociology. And so we need to focus on the creation of meaningful wealth and then use that wealth as charity instead of going right into charity and being the beneficiary of somebody else's wealth to perform that
Yes.
charity work.
Yes. I like it. I like it. And so, on a serious note, continuing kind of in this vein, how do you think the pandemic has affected banking, and what do you see are the far-reaching effects that we'll see in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have to say, I should have said it at the beginning, that the thoughts are my own, and they in no way reflect Regions or my employer's attitude towards this.
Sure.
But if you look at right now, the oil and gas industry is struggling. The restaurant industry is struggling, and the retail industry is struggling, and a few more. And if banks had too much exposure to any of those industries, they're in trouble. So the other thing that we have to look at is the Federal Reserve is also lowering interest rates as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how banks make money, is on the spread of interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you start to lower the interest rates and the amount that banks can charge, then the revenue potential for these banks are going to decrease over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so banks will always be around. They won't be in trouble. Typically, they won't lose money. However, their revenues will decrease, and Wall Street will kind of sour a bit over the next 2 or 3 years until interest rates start to rise and profitability comes back. And so over the long term, it will definitely be a rocky road due to some industry pressures, due to interest rate pressures, and due to COVID. And people, I mean, it's 20 million plus people unemployed, and it's hard for outside businesses to grow and create revenue, which they would then need to borrow from the bank to invest in the next thing. And so there may be some missed loan opportunity due to a stagnant economy and the impact that COVID has had on us.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
It's so deep, but it's so good at the same time. Like trying to soak in all the knowledge.
So everything is interconnected. So all banks are is a service provider. Businesses create the need to borrow based on their ability to sell more products or provide more services. And if they have no need to increase their services, if they have no need to purchase that new machine, there's typically no need to borrow. If their revenue isn't increasing, typically there's no need to borrow. And so we all feed off of each other, marketing, event planning. So as the small, medium, and large company goes, so does everybody else goes, including the banks.
We're all interdependent.
We're all interdependent, without question.
For sure. And so on a fun note, I know you love comedy. So who are some of your favorite comedians?
Right now, I tend to listen to a lot of Dave Chappelle. from the Chappelle Show to some of the latest stand-up specials.
Mhm.
He always delivers.
Yeah.
There's kind of a underground-ish type comic in Patrice
Mhm.
O'Neal.
Okay.
And when we take things internationally, Russell Peters is a
Mhm.
really good one.
Mhm.
Joe Coy is very, very funny. And so
Mhm.
those are kind of like my top four when
The
I
top
want
one. Okay.
when I want to chill and relax. I go to the comedy, and international comedy is great. And you throw some Dave Chappelle on, you can't miss with that.
You can't
You,
go wrong.
you
Can't go
can't.
wrong with
I
that.
don't think so. You're in DC too, so
Yep.
Dave Chappelle is a DC native. It's hard to go wrong with him.
You can't. And so, on another note, you're also very involved in the community. And
Yeah.
so what do you think is the most important thing about giving back, and how do you exemplify it in your everyday life?
I think authenticity is the most important thing about giving back. Doing it because it's important to you,
Mhm.
and it's heart, HEART. It's hard work, in addition to being hard work.
Mhm.
And when you're in a community and you're in these streets and you're talking and connecting with people,
Mhm.
authenticity is critically important
Yeah.
because people will sniff out a fake all day.
Mhm.
So the second thing too is getting involved in an area that aligns with your interests. So for me, it's always going to be finance, and
Mhm.
so financial literacy is important. Organizations like the National Urban League and the local Memphis Urban League and the Young Professionals unit of it have a special place in my heart because they focus on the economic advances of people that look like me.
Right.
And growing up kind of poor and struggling like I did, that financial piece and understanding money and finance, I think, is critically important to moving past poverty into wealth and an abundance mindset. And so you take that authenticity, you take something that you're already naturally interested in, and
Mhm.
then community work becomes easy.
Right. Yeah.
And then you also have to kind of you can't be everywhere, and you can't be all things
Right.
to all people,
Right.
right? Certain organizations may look at you and say, well, Ashley's doing really great things, we want her to join the board of our nonprofit that does something that Ashley is not interested in. You're
Right.
flattered, and you might say yes because they thought enough of you to ask you to do it, but you're really not passionate about it.
Right.
And depending on the boards that you're a part of,
Mhm.
you have to be passionate about it because it really can be a tremendous amount of work.
True. Very true. And you don't want to not be all in. When you're doing community service, you can't be lukewarm.
You cannot be looked on. And so things that I'm involved in here in Memphis, like the Downtown Memphis Commission, is about economic development. Downtown, I was in a new Memphis Institute.
Mhm.
We had to do a community style project, and I chose a project where we can have what I could have a financial influence and financial impact on.
Yeah.
And so everything I do typically starts to align with what's happening in my life as far as a financial focus is concerned.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's talk about another fun topic. Let's talk about Grind Sets.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
co-host on Grind Set the podcast, you highlight women entrepreneurs in the Memphis area. So, what have been some of your most inspirational stories?
Well, first of all, I always have to give a shout out to the Kazukian Network and Larry Robinson, and of course my great and illustrious co-host Cynthia Daniels.
Yeah.
The very first episode was hugely inspirational to me. I think it was Andrea Johnson of the Bubble Bistro. Definitely have to shout out to her moving her business to Memphis, but the business savvy is just impressive.
Mm.
All right, it's being able to price her products correctly on the front end, being able to create this fandom and this desire for her products, and standing firm when much larger companies want to do business with her,
Right.
but the terms aren't right. And so she's not settling because she's a good businesswoman until the right and the perfect deal comes along that she thinks is right and fair. And another one is the Pink Bakery.
Okay.
And so that story is impressive because it's a passion business. Uh, Pink Bakery provides desserts that are allergen free
Mm.
because the owner she can't have those allergens herself.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and it's great. It's inspirational to me because it's a person who created that, not from school training, not from
Right.
culinary school. Is a person who created this business out of passion, and it's self-taught, and
Mm.
it's growing, and it's wonderful business. And I'm not even vegan, and I like the products. I like the brownies, and
Awesome.
so it's really great work. It's impactful. It's passionate. It's targeted, and it has the business has the a business to grow. So, shout out to Nubian Simmons of the Pink Bakery as well.
Awesome.
And I mean, it really is just so many phenomenal
Yeah, I'm
women
sure.
entrepreneurs here
Mhm.
in Memphis. I can't shout them all out, but it's
Right.
there's some great stories. One is Makeup by Z,
Okay.
right? So when you think about business, we talk about how do you get to a business that you can get $100 million loan, or
Mhm.
you can scale up and do two, three, $400 million in business, or maybe
Yeah.
even 10 million.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's just not the play for some of these entrepreneurs.
Right. Mhm.
Some people just want to get out of the corporate grind, work for themselves, and make the money that they want to make for their lifestyle.
Mhm.
And if you look at Makeup by Z and the work that she's doing in her makeup business,
Mhm.
she's doing business on her own term.
Yeah.
Now, she may never be a $20 billion makeup company,
Mhm.
but she's living life and doing business on her own terms,
Right.
which is extremely impressive.
Yes. And
And
that's some, for, like you said, for some people that's the goal. That's where some people are trying to get to,
it's the goal. And so, I mean, I admire people who say, "This is my lane,"
Right.
and they stay in that lane and
Yeah.
they do the hell out of it.
Right.
And so for businesses who do that, I'm impressed by, because you know what you're not trying to scale up a business that's not scalable. You're
Right.
doing what is good for you, and to me, that's impressive.
Yeah. It
And
is
so
impressive. It
and
is
and, and
impressive.
so for the Black Truth Media audience, you can find the Grind Set podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on Android, in the Play Store, as well as Kudzkian, KUDZIKIAN, also has an app with a lot of tremendous shows in addition to the Grind Set show. And if you want inspiration about why you should go ahead and transition from your 9 to 5 and start that business, Grind Set will provide wonderful motivation for you.
Yes. And I have that app. So I
Yeah.
definitely recommend it as well.
Shout
So
out to Kazuki again.
shout out to Kazuki, yes. And so unfortunately, we have come to the end of this episode
Yeah.
of the Black Motivation Broadcast. But I do want to thank you so much for joining me
Yeah.
on this episode and bringing so much richness and so much knowledge, and sharing, your industry advice and your just insight
Yeah. I
with.
mean, finance and banking is a critically important and widely misunderstood industry. Business owners and people should know it better. Being on the inside now, talking to people is not as intimidating as you might think, or the stories that you may hear. It's a lot easier once a few fundamentals are in place. And I do have to say, Ashley, I'm really grateful for the invite on your show. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And so my last question for you is, what words would you like to leave our audience with on this episode of the Black Motivation Broadcast?
Well, I tell thank you for the last question, and I'll tell people, put something in the GPS. We don't know what's happening in life. Everything is uncertain, but put some direction out there. Even if you don't know, put a marker, reach that, put another marker out there, reach that, and put another marker out there. Because what you'll ultimately find is you can only go as far as your imagination will take you, as far as you think you can go. And so if you start to have that confidence in yourself by achieving little goals, when you say, "Hey, I want to be the president of the US," maybe that's within reach, or maybe you want to buy that house or get the fancy new car, and you start to manifest some things about what you want. So aimlessness is a vice. Always have a target in mind of where you want to go and work your butt off to get there.
Hey, so very true. And
Yeah.
how can we find you on social media and follow you? Again, also share that information about grind sets.
So yeah, absolutely. On Facebook, I'm Williams D Brack. On Instagram, Williams D Brack. On Twitter, again, Williams D Brack. And you can also follow Grindset on Facebook, Instagram, I think Twitter as well, all at the Grindset moniker. We post daily to the Grindset for the motivation, and you can find snippets and episodes there. And Grindset also has a YouTube channel now as well. Find us on Spotify, like, subscribe, and comment if the spirit so moves you.
If it so moves you. And you can find us at the Black Truth Media on Instagram and on Facebook. So thank you so much again for joining us, and have a great night, everybody.